Let me start this review up by saying that I may say some things that you may not fully agree with. Generation 4 was never my favorite generation, and I think part of this is due to the fact that I played Platinum much later. I never quite considered it the amazing game others do because in my opinion, Platinum was always built on a shaky foundation. So when we found out a short little while ago that Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl would contain next to no Platinum content, fans were not exactly pleased, creating yet another Sword and Shield-esque division among fans, yet again. While it's not quite as divisive this time, I do believe it's ultimately worth pointing out, because it shows that there are many different Pokémon fans with different wishes. Perhaps this is why, as Game Freak is working on Legends Arceus, they outsourced their big holiday game for this year to another company, Ilka. One question has to be how much free reign Ilka had with this game though, because they were likely given incredibly strict parameters to work with. Everything had to be basically the exact same, right down to pathing shenanigans, which leads to possibly everyone's earliest critics when the first trailers dropped, the graphics. Now personally, I am somewhat biased towards chibi art styles. I love their free, bouncy nature, and I just really like cute stuff, honestly. So on the first reveal, I wasn't too bothered by the art style at all. I still think it looks quite good, to a certain extent. In any moment when the game zooms in, the camera kind of reveals all, and it's at these points that the characters make me feel like they're Funko Pops or Legos. They feel floaty and weightless, and they give me a weird feeling because of their animations, or rather, lack thereof. As per Pokémon tradition, characters simply walk in place while turning around their x-axis, and in cutscenes, the characters still snap to an invisible grid. I have no idea why they did this, since it contrasts so much with the free movement present in the game. Something that also bothers me is the ludicrously high amount of blur that certain areas seem to have. What's going on here? Why is it so blurry? It almost feels like this was intentionally done because these areas would normally not be visible in the original DS games. But I have no idea. I just don't really like it myself. But I'm sure there are those who will enjoy this stylistic choice. However, that is of course just half of the picture, because the other half of your time spent in this game won't be in battles, and oh boy! These look around how it would normally look for a Pokemon game. Some models have had their idle animations updated, mostly to make them more in line with the older Diamond and Pearl sprites. In battle, the graphics remain the same pastel-like colors from the overworld, and the battle scenes have been given some serious work to make each area stand out more. Even each gym has a unique battle scene this time, and this really helps areas stand out a lot as you rarely feel like you're just fighting in a generic void. Except for when you fight Tinkaland. All in all, while the game isn't graphically the most impressive, it absolutely does more than the bare minimum, and I'm willing to say that if you enjoyed Sword and Shield's graphics, you'll definitely like this. It's just a very vibrant and almost cartoonish experience, and I can only wonder what it's like on the Switch OLED. It just feels like such a shame that this game seems like it had a very strict deadline to meet, as I can only wonder what it would look like given more care and love, because yeah, we were waiting for this. Here's a somewhat political aspect of the Pokemon review video on YouTube. Who could have seen this one coming? This game was probably rushed beyond belief. There is no sense in denying it. If you have a physical cartridge, I strongly urge you to set up a save without the updates applied. This game was not finished before it shipped, and it created something of a spark among the community again, didn't it? The music wasn't finished, the online wasn't in the game, post-game wasn't finished. By the way, there's post-game. Even if for some of these things the argument could be made that it would have been or could have been to prevent leaks, you cannot in good conscience say that for things like the music. Which is nice, by the way. You've been listening to the soundtrack for the entire video, so you can draw your own conclusion on that. However, I just believe this is a dangerous precedent that's being set here. There's already Switch games that require a download. Personally, I believe this game deserves the data download sticker, because the update data is rather large. It simply worries me for the future of the franchise as well. Will we continue to get yearly installments that can barely reach deadlines? I was hoping the collaboration between Ilka and the Pokémon Company meant that the next Pokémon game would be able to get a much more reasonable development time. But no! Legends Arceus comes out in 2 months, did you know that? However, this game definitely does do Diamond and Pearl justice. It's a good remaster. It's just kind of not a very good remake. Because sure, it's remade, but how much can you say has been remade when Pokemon has been reusing the same system since Ruby and Sapphire? There are a few gameplay tweaks that do irk me. The Pokecatch system is one. The Pokecatch, or Pokewatch, was pretty much the bottom screen for the overworld, and would let you access various apps. Some were useful, and some were Nintendo DS Calculator. While there was some heavy speculation as to what would happen to this on a single screen handheld or console, it seems that we ultimately settled on the screen-in-screen approach. While this was likely the best way to deal with the Pokémon system, one could argue that we probably didn't need the system to return. For most of the game, it's easy enough to ignore, though I decided to keep mine on as a party display as a permanent reminder of when to heal, which I will admit was very nice. Eventually, HMs will force you to try and clunk your way through the Pokédex, wiggling your little cursor hand over the buttons to select them, but luckily, pretty much all of them have workarounds. You can just kind of press A on applicable terrain just like in the old days, and flying can be done from the map. It just kinda begs the question to me, why is the Pokédex app even a thing in the first place then? It also makes the dowsing machine a complete pain to use, for example, since you must now tap the R button to open it up to big mode, then move your cursor to ping the dowsing machine, and then you can close it again. And all that for a single ping of the machine. I can't say this decision of retaining the Pokédex in its original form was a good idea. There's also the new EXP system carrying over from Sword and Shield. Consider it as an always-on EXP share since it's basically just how it works. I've personally started calling it the new EXP system, since this is likely just kind of the way it is now. Is the game adjusted to the new system? Well, yes and no. I'll say this, provided that you do not grind at all and only go for straight objectives, this game is not the easiest starter stomp I've played. The original games were pretty good at making boss trainers really have their boss monsters mess you up. A Lucario that outlevels you with Bulk Up, Confuse Ray on a Gengar and a Eonaegis, a Pure Ugly with Fake Out that also outlevels most of your mons. They've even employed health items that can defeat your strategy, like a Berry to make sure that you can't break the opposing Gengar using a Dark-type move. The game is not the easiest romp as a result of this. It's still not a truly difficult Pokemon game, but I would equate it to being on the level of a modern RPG on normal mode, rather than the easy mode we've been fed for the last few titles. That being said, being a remake of Diamond and Pearl specifically cannot be considered a good thing in itself either. I've always personally felt that these games are a bit lackluster experiences with a rather boring and safe Pokédex. Heck, the main game has so little fire types that the fire type Elite Four member barely even uses any. And some gyms can have a particularly uninteresting lineup. Like how the fighting type gym only has 4 different Pokemon. Seriously, I counted the mons. There's 6 Machoke, a Machop, 2 Metatypes, and the boss monsters are Lucario. My opinion on the original Diamond and Pearl games themselves is that I just don't find the game around it very interesting to play. And usually the counter-argument is, but Platinum though. So it's a sad thing that I have to announce that nearly none of the content in this game is based on Platinum. There are some nods here and there that Platinum exists, but can feel like an insult to injury at times. However, it seems that Ilka was able to find a happy medium by adding new zones to the Underground where you can capture more Pokemon that aren't normally found in the Diamond and Pearl Sinnoh region. While this feels like a band-aid fix at best, this at least gives the player more options, which I appreciate a lot, even though I ended up just using my base team for most of the game. My journey throughout Sinnoh was a mixed experience overall, but what happens after the journey through Sinnoh? Well, I'm happy to say that at the very least, Diamond and Pearl's original post-game has been left intact. With the hunt for roaming legendaries to Stark Mountain and a few more areas to explore, it's a nice change of pace compared to the previous Switch entries in the Pokemon series. But there's more! Since transferring is no longer done through silly little minigames and instead through your wallet, the Pal Park area has been refurbished to become Romana's Park, where you can get all the legendaries your heart desires. Well, these ones anyway, depending on version. There are also gym trainer rematches where the difficulty is cranked up to 11. It's perhaps not the most interesting post-game content, but it does ensure that there is enough for you to do after you've beaten the league. So, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond or Shining Pearl, should you get it? Well, I'm fairly certain you should know your own answer by now. I'm still a little mixed on it, but with all that being said, it's clear that a lot of care was placed in the content on display here, and the game is easily the most difficult Pokemon game in recent memory, so that's interesting. I personally hope to let Ilka tackle another game in the future, but hopefully without the strict deadlines, or at least a longer development cycle. It's clear to me that they have a pretty good idea what they're doing and what fans want. Well, I suppose that wraps up my little speech on this game. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope you're now able to make an informed decision on whether or not this is the game for you. Maybe give this video a like and a comment. Maybe even subscribe if you want to hear more of my voice. If you do that, I promise you I'll be back soon, okay? Okay.